What's going on, you guys? Gaming Addict here. So, seems we're a man down right now. I'm sure he'll be here momentarily throughout the show. Thank you for watching a Gaming Addict show. No, Gaming Addict Spotlight, technically. And we're going to talk about the Fable franchise. You know, for the past, present, where the game has been, where it's going to be, where we want it to go. So, today I'm joined by Mamacita. She's a member of the Double XP podcast as well as a content creator on YouTube. She's a respected member of the gaming community. I'm glad she took the time out to talk about Fable.
Oh wow, I like that intro.
Yeah, I've been getting chewed out over my intros, so I had to improve them.
Oh, you had to step it up a bit. Huh? That's all right. That was pretty good. Hey everybody, I'm really glad to be here with Gamer Addict, and I'm really glad that you asked me to come on to your show and have this discussion. I'm truly ready to get going with this one. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Fable is like truly dear to me. So I'm ready to talk.
So we do have another guest. I'm sure he'll be here momentarily. If not, thanks for trying. Well, shit happens. It's whatever he doesn't. But if he does pop in here, I'm gonna go ahead and do his intro now, so it doesn't like interrupt the flow of the podcast too much. So if he does show up, it's Cal from the Inner Circle. He's the host of the Inner Circle podcast, the founder of Tick Network, and has helped create multiple podcasts from Trophy Life to podcasts on his own network, like the Double XP podcast that you guys do, and his very own solo podcast, Super Pod Shots. So, if he shows up, that's who it is. I don't really think he needs me to tell who he is. I'm pretty sure anyone watching this will know who he is. So the reason I brought these people together is so we could talk about Fable. And more particularly, what we want the next installment of this franchise to be, where we want it to go, and, from aspects of the past games of what we want to continue into the future of the franchise. So without any ado, I guess we'll go ahead and start the topics. First topic is, what's your favorite Fable? Obviously, that's got to be the first topic.
Oh, wow. For me, it will have to be Fable 2. And I'm going to go with Fable 2 because that was the first Fable I actually played. Everybody that knows my background, I've given my background about how Fable kind of brought me back into this current generation of gaming. One night I just picked up my controller. I had been gaming on Xbox, the 360 and PS3, but I was more into motion gaming. I hadn't really played a controller-based game since like my Mario days. But I played Fable 2, and Fable 2 was oh man, I think it's my favorite because it had a darker, grittier theme in it, in my opinion, versus Fable, the first Fable, and then of course Fable 3. The enemies were just a little more gruesome, and the Hollow Men, and not the Hollow Men, but the Balverines, and they were just, the Hollow Men too. But the story, the sequence of events. Lucien to me was like a villain that just peaked. He was just kind of mystical to me, or mysterious, I should say. And so I'm going with Fable 2.
Oh, you're gonna say Fable 2? I don't know if we can even be friends anymore after that.
Oh no, is it that? It's like that.
If Fable 2 is not bad, it's just I don't think it can touch Fable 1. I just don't. Like, Fable 3 is by far the worst one out of the franchise. It's not it's not a bad game. It's just I felt like it was a downgrade compared to the original Fable and Fable 2.
I would agree with that.
But Fable 1, I just Lucien was a good antagonist, but he can't touch Jack of Blades. He can't.
Well, if we want to go, enemy versus enemy, I would give Jack of Blades, but I'm talking about the entire scope of the game. And mind you, you hear me out. Fable 2 was the first one I played, so I played them out of sequence. I played Fable 2, Fable 3. I wasn't even aware of a Fable during the time. I was just so excited to be playing a game, controller-based game. And then when I found out about the original Fable, I didn't play the original Fable until Fable the remake or the reboot when they was that a couple of years ago when they did the remaster. And Fable, I have to admit, Fable's combat, I was taken aback in how different I felt like the combat system was in the original Fable. It wasn't necessarily automatically locking on your enemies like in Fable 2. You know, you didn't really have to, you know, line your aim up too much. As long as you were in the direction of the enemies, you could pretty much take them out. Whereas in Fable, especially using, I use not the what is that, the weapon? I'm tired. I just can't think of the name of the weapon right now. But I was more of a the range and magic as well. But it just seemed like the the choices of abilities they were more in depth in the original Fable, and I don't know. So I would give the original Fable the edge up with combat. But overall, and I gotta give it to Fable 2. The Teresa, oh my gosh, what were those things called? The Banshee. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
yes, go. They used to freak me out. Just having to take down, you know, those banshees were just to me that was just the ultimate in fighting enemies. In my
And they were creepy too.
They were extremely creepy. I mean, you will walk into an area of water or lake area, and then bam, she just appears out of nowhere, and then having to take her down was just kind of exhilarating for me. But you know, if you had to ask me which one, I have to go with Fable 2.
Yeah, I just had to stick with Fable 1. I felt like the overall combat was better in Fable 1. The overall story was better in Fable 1. The antagonist is better. They had a rivalry in Fable 1. And then, Fable 2 wasn't a bad game. It's just I felt like throughout the franchise, it got worse and worse and worse until you got to Fable 3. And then, he had Fable Legends, I think what its
Mm,
name was. But we won't really bring that up too much. But,
mm-mm.
so I do got a couple questions here. One says, didn't they
Okay.
shut the studio down? Yes, they did, but Microsoft did say there were a lot of people who were interested in Lionhead Studio, but they wanted the Fable IP with it. So Microsoft said, no, we don't want to do that. So right there shows me that, if Microsoft was going to kill Fable off completely and never revisit this franchise, they would have sold the rights and they would have sold the studio with it. Another one says, do you think Fable holds up? I still never played any of them, but I always wanted when I was younger. I think that, we'll get to this later, but I think a rebooted Fable done right by the right studio could very well sell good in this modern gaming industry. What do you think, Mamacita?
Oh, most definitely. Oh my gosh. Now, one thing Phil did say and that piqued everybody's interest a couple of weeks ago was when he said there's a lot of things that we could do with Fable. And oh my God, a reboot to me would just be phenomenal right now. And I think a reboot with an emphasis on combat and the lore of Fable, the guild, an arena, or crucible. I think that would just be the ultimate. And then I know we're gonna talk about that a little later. So
Yeah, definitely. So
mhm.
we'll go ahead and move on with the topics. My next topic is, what aspects do you think Fable does well that you don't see a whole lot of genres these days do?
Oh, I think still storytelling. I do. I think Fable was pretty good in its storytelling. In playing, you could argue Fable 3, of course, wasn't the best of the three, but I think that the way that they implemented the storyline, the way they told it, and you understanding, you had the background of the characters. You knew the hero of Bowerstone, or rather was the hero of Brightwall, or what was it, the original name? He was hero of Oakvale.
Yeah, Hero of
You know,
Oakville.
I mean, you kind of knew why. You knew the why, the what of it all, and that's what I think they did pretty well, and then captivating you. into the environment and why you were doing it. It's like you wanted to, I wanted to play nonstop. When I picked up Fable 2, I want to put that game down to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, definitely. But we do have an interesting question I didn't really even think about in the comments. It says, do you guys think they should do the next Fable as a single character Zelda / Witcher game, or you think they should go more of like a Dragon Age BioWare style?
Oh my gosh. I couldn't see where they could go wrong with either one of those, to be honest. I could see that. Fable could work either way. I mean, oh my gosh, the multiple you have your hero of will, you could have the hero of skill, you have a hero of strength, and being able to intertwine or interchange between those two and each have a different playing styles and abilities. Oh man, that would just be awesome.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, I do have a topic related a little bit to that down here. Well, down here more into the topics, but when it comes to the whole aspect thing, I think that one of the things that people really forgot in Fable, besides companies like BioWare, they still do it, is that cause and effect. What choices you make now will affect choices down the future. Like I remember a certain time in Fable 1 to where you had your rival, which was Wesker, and you were fighting her in an arena. And so you're fighting her, and this is if you get through the whole arena, because there's like 20 levels of the arena. So you get to the end, and she's fighting 2 in the arena, and at the end they end up pitting you against each other.
Yeah.
So you're fighting, and she's like, "Let's give these people something to watch." So you fight her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're fighting her, and then towards the end of that battle, it's chaotic, and you finally get your health down. She kneels. I don't even think I lost her. I don't know if there is a different ending to if you lose to her. And Jacob Blade comes out, and it wasn't a fight to the death. And Jacob Blade sits up, and he's like, "If you kill her, I'll give you $20,000." and at the time, that's a lot of money in Fable. Like I'm sitting here, like I feel a certain way. Like I really do. Like I like Wesker, but I'm looking up like that's a lot of money, fam. Like. It's like, so, and what I think's interesting is if you don't kill her, she vanishes after that point. She goes back to her homelands. And if you play Fable 3, I believe, the islands on the below of Albion, that's where she's actually from, is where you go to that island that's being attacked by the darkness in Fable 3. It's it's complete spoilers, but I don't care. Anyone that's not played the Fables.
They should have played it by now.
So that's where she's from, but if you do kill her later on in the story, an extra quest will pop up that will only pop up if you kill her. That her brother Thunder wants to revenge her death. That feels like you wronged his family, and she trusted you because she was your friend, and you killed her for some coin.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So that I always thought that was a cool aspect. You don't see stuff like that in gaming anymore.
That's true.
You just don't. And I always thought that was only an experience that you got from Fable. The Fable franchise was, they had those legendary weapons that you could only access if you were completely good or completely bad. And they had a lot of different aspects, like the Temple of Storm that was in Fable 1, where you could sacrifice people you could trick people into coming with you, take them to this temple and be like, "Here you go, fam."
Yes. Temple of Light. Remember Temple of Light or Temple of Darkness?
The Temple of Light, where you can get the Sword of Eon or whatever.
Yes. Oh wow. Yeah, it was just to me, it was really massive, and it was really. I go back to the lore and the history of it, but I just think, in some of the games today, and then you look back at a game like Fable, which is why we're talking about it, Nicodemus, to answer your question, all right? Because Fable, to me, that's what it did really well. It gave you different aspects of the story, of gameplay, just different ways, as you mentioning, sacrificing people. I mean, and I know it's an RPG, and more of an action RPG, I would say. But when you look at that versus today's action RPGs or even RPGs, you don't really see a lot of that. You don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of these aspects you only got from Fable. And, I will answer your question, Nicodemus. The reason I'm bringing this up is because what's the one thing everyone's talking about? Xbox needs games. And a Fable, a well done Fable, I feel would be on the equivalent of, their action adventure game that, even if a Fable was really, really well done and really, took their time, dotted every I, crossed every T, it could rival something like The Witcher.
Yes, it could. The thing about it is, I don't think people understand that the original Fable, I kind of went back and did my homework on this, okay? I mean, the original Fable was like the top selling, fastest selling game for the Xbox when it was released, at least during at
It was
that time.
it was the reason. A lot of people, oh, I'm an Xbox gamer because of Halo. I'm an Xbox gamer because of Gears. I
Hmm.
bought my OG Xbox for Fable 1.
Yeah, and they always leave that out. They want to call it the shooter box, but you don't mention Fable. You don't mention that Fable sold had like 2 million copies by 2007, and it went on to sell 3 million copies. You don't mention Fable in the lines of Halo and the Gears. So Fable was a full blown action RPG, and I mean even the when you look at the art style of it, which was just so different, the art style, the music, the soundtrack was really even the humor, that European, almost British style
we'll
humor.
go. We'll,
Oh my gosh.
we'll get to that
Yeah,
early.
yeah, yeah.
That
All
is
right.
definitely like I want to talk about that humor here in a couple minutes because for one, I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it. It's just I feel like a Fable would be better without it. But we'll get to that here in a minute.
Okay. Okay.
So my next topic: do you think they need to reboot the franchise or just make a sequel to 3?
I think they
And
need
if
to.
a reboot, would you like them to start in the same timeline as the original one with Jack of Blades?
Well, I want a reboot, to be honest. I think they should just reboot the entire series. And I think I would like them to go back even to like where Jack Blade originated. Even going back
I
further
always
that.
thought I always thought if they didn't make a prequel, that
Mhm.
Telltale could make a story about Jack of Blades.
Yes, because that story in itself, the Queen of Blaze, Jack of Blaze, and it was another one because it was like three of them, and them coming out of the void, and controlling, trying to control Albion, and that entire sequence of events, and with William Black and him rising into a hero of Will. I think that entire storyline really, I think, should be told. I think they just need to go back to the roots of it, similar to what with the rise of with Tomb Raider series. Just do a complete a reboot and tell that story. And I think tell it from the beginning, even if you implemented the historic, I have even if it's within flashbacks or whatever during the gameplay. I think that needs to be told because it's just so
Definitely.
good.
Yeah, and a lot of people always Fable used to be one of Xbox's flagships. It used to be very, very big, but after every iteration, it's like I said, it's like they drop more and more on the hype scale. And then there's the
Mhm.
infamous Fable Legends that really killed the brand.
Oh
And then you got
yeah.
Fable Journey, that Connect game where
Okay. Yeah.
people wanted a new Fable and they got a Connect game, so that really pissed people off too. So when it comes to my opinion, I feel like this game needs a reboot, like complete from the ground up. I think they need to have more of a Western. It isn't. The originals were made in Britain, the United Kingdoms. I think that's where they were made, right? I know it was made in British,
Well, yeah, that was yeah. I mean, that was the
but
I mean, at least that was it based on that, that older
yeah,
European
they could still
time
have
frame.
the surroundings of that region if they wanted to, but I felt like they need to take away the British humor, make it more dark and grimy, make the choices more demanding. Like there's certain aspects of the game that's very, very demanding, like, you know, like certain aspects that you'll go to a place and it's like you can either lose your hand or your teammate can die, like stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like more life and choice decisions like that, you know, make go all out. This game's rated M anyway. So it's like, you know, if you wanted to make it to where, like, you know, they had the cause and effect to where it would change your appearance depending on what side of the spectrum you went to, where if you went all the way down, you know, you had this red aura around you and you had these giant scales pop out of your head and your eyes turned red, like make you look like a legit demon if you decide to go like all dark sider on people and, you know, just killing, massacring whole villages and stuff.
And that's another thing though that you brought up. That's another thought. Depending on the route you decided to take, whether you know that evil versus good, and how you were just your physical characteristics were just morph into this. Honestly, it was like an atrocious being, to be honest. You're all big and muscular in the face. Remember your face in Fable 3? It was like this pale white, I think, complexion, or not even pale white. It was like this bright white. My character, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was kind of weird the way you kind of morphed. But I think if they bring that series up to date and they make it dark and grittier, I still think they could
They could put
retain
the British
some of that British
in
humor.
there,
They
like the
could.
chicken chaser, you know, the choices, you know, the nicknames. But I'm talking
Yes.
about like the overall graphic style too,
Oh
like,
no,
you
no.
know.
See, I'm talking about conversation. The conversation. The things that they would say, the things that you would hear the NPCs that they would just talk about when you were in Oakville or when you were in Bowerstone, and how the conversations. I mean, and do you want them to take out the prostitution? Because I don't. Because I had some fun with that.
Well, like the prostitution's everywhere, regardless if you're in Britain, you know, United States. But you know what I really like, I want Fable to thrive if they bring it back, and I feel like that British humor will only really relate to certain people, you know, the old style Fable people that like the original Fables. But I feel like to make this more of a world now thing and make it more accessible to the casuals and make more people enjoy this game, they'd have to take that out, because I feel like we're not in that time where people's gonna like corny jokes and stuff like that anymore.
It was just so funny though. You wouldn't say it wasn't funny to you when you
It
were playing. You would
it
hear the things they would
it
say.
it was funny, but you know, a lot of the expressions I never used because I felt like the expression system, like if I were to say, if they were to take the existing formula and make a Fable game, the it would be Wesker, you know, the rival system from the first one, the magic system from the first one, because every iteration of Fable, they fucked up the magic system even more.
That's true.
So,
The
you know,
first one was the best, and I give that Fable one first. The first one was the best with that.
yeah, I feel like they need to do that. They need to take the expression system from the second one, because I felt like that was really that was a good expression system, and they need to take the battle combat system from the third one,
From the exact yes,
because the combat system was the only thing they got right in the third
yeah.
one. And you know, a lot of people don't like the thing they did with the, you know, at the very end of the game, you have to make these choices that you did
Mhm.
the entirety of the third game's campaign. And it's just like, look, man, like I know you go through this whole campaign promising these promises, and you get to the end of the game,
You
and you
can't
know and what I thought was funny is they put Reaver from the second one in the third one
yeah.
as the opposite council, and he's sitting there and he's like, okay, now I know you promised not to enslave children. And
Right.
he's like, you promised us this. This is what it took us to help you take the kingdom back. And Reaver's like, look, you're gonna lose like $200 million if you don't put these little kids to jail. If you don't put these little kids to work. I was like, I got two that you can have.
I know. I know. And the thing is, in my first playthrough, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. So I made the decision at the end. I was like, okay, my bank account was just depleted. My people were gone. It was just empty. I know it was just so sad and dismal. I was like, oh my God. But then after I played Fable 3, I had 5 playthroughs with that.
I'm
But
not
then
gonna I'm not gonna lie. When after those choices, I felt wretched morally. I was like, I done put little kids to child work.
But the thing is, if you had money, if you had enough money
I
throughout
was
the
broke.
game, but you didn't, I
I
didn't
didn't buy
know that
Reaver
when I
the
was
first
playing
time.
it. But they introduced that game. It was an Fable coin golf that that link to your Fable 3 account so that you could play the game on your phone. And then when you loaded the game up, the Fable 3 game up, you would go and money, it would be gifts. You would just be granted gifts. So I was collecting like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So by the time the end of the game, I had enough money my second playthrough.
Remember the cheese they used to do where you'd go in your Xbox settings and set yourself up like 50 years in the future, and when you went back to Fable, you'd get like $20 billion.
See, I didn't know about that then. See, what you telling me now?
Well, see, I knew that then. It was in Fable 1, but in Fable 2 it was Fable 2, because Fable 1 you had to go house to house to collect your rent. Mm-hmm. But in Fable 2 it would just come in your wallet. And it was like that for the longest time, and they did a patch. And I was like, dude, just let people cheat and become billionaires. Who cares?
Oh, so now that makes sense why they came out with the coin golf for Fable 3, where you could just make the money, make it up play the game, and you could rack it up.
Oh, you could. Like, you could. I remember the first time I ever played that game and I heard about that. I started an account, bought where you go in the Siren's Village or whatever is where you first fell out of the tower in Fable 2, and you wake up in the camp of the sister from Fable 1.
Okay.
I bought the first thing that you were sleeping in. It was like 150 gold. And then I jumped like 50 years into the future and came back to like enough gold to buy everything in the game. And rent was only like $5 every 5 minutes or some shit like that. So I do got some questions in the chat. Would you guys want a more defined character to play with, like Garrett or Ciri? How do you pronounce that chick from Witcher? Ciri, or an avatar similar to the previous Fable games?
Oh, I would want a more defined character.
I don't know about the main character. Okay, I feel like you should still. I feel like that should be what your imagination is. But every other character in Fable, I want defined just like Garrett.
Okay, wait a minute. So, because what you're saying is you're a protagonist, your main hero. Yeah, you want it to be more like Dragon Age.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's I want like you perspective of what you feel like your character should do.
Okay, see,
and everyone you interact with has personalities,
right?
But
okay,
I wouldn't be against the other one too.
But I would want to be able to personalize my character. So that's what I mean, like being able to personalize my character a little bit more. Of course, we really couldn't do that before. It was just either male or female, at least in 2 or 3. I want to be able to make that character, look like me if I want to. So I would like to see more personalization of the character.
Yeah, I agree.
Most definitely.
I definitely agree with you. Lord Kabatsu says, as long as they have the customized aspects, it would be good. That's what a lot of people originally went for in Fable. I would completely agree with you. I feel like when people, it's like the whole Halo thing. People got real fucked up when they were talking about Halo, and they're like, this is what made Halo. The sprinting is what made, not sprinting, not aiming down sights what made Halo. It's like, no, map control is what made Halo. Everyone else just fucked up. It's like the people who did not want sprinting and aim down sights is the only people that could use it was the BRs. That's all. So if they couldn't use the BR, sprinting made it harder to use the BR. So people are like, we don't want sprinting. Aiming made it harder to shoot someone with the BR because they could hit you just as easy as you could hit them. So they didn't want aiming. Mm-hmm. But that's a completely other rant. So it's just like Fable. What made Fable what it was the character development. It made the world decisions, the aspects of the world, the collectibles, which is another thing that made it Fable, is because it wasn't like these games modern days where collectibles were irrelevant. It was the collectibles actually got you in-game shit that was lit.
Yes, it did. And remember the keys? You have to collect certain keys to open up certain treasure boxes, and I mean it was just the whole scope of that. I just think they did that so well. So,
obviously the person in the chat, we've had this debate for a while. I want you to be the deciding factor. Okay, I will make a deal with you, Lord Kabatsu. If she says, we ain't going to say who she's rolling towards, but whoever she rolls towards, I will never bring it up. We have to agree the person wins. Was Fable Legends in the original Fable 3, was they the same kind of gameplay? Like, what was it, the same game kind of?
No.
So I win, Lord Kamatsu.
No.
They were completely two different games. One was a
No.
MOBA and one was a story oriented game.
Yeah, they were. I was in that beta for 2 years. The
Which,
Fable Legends.
the Fable Legends was fun. It's just I felt like it could have been something different. If they did a MOBA, they could have made it good, but they kind of did this weird 4v1 MOBA, and that's what really
Yeah, and
ruined it.
the combat wasn't, and I would agree that from the original release of that, it was, to me, it was so buggy, and they did implement a lot of changes, and it did improve over time, but it's still, the combat
It was just too late.
it was late. It was like a delayed. It wasn't as sharp or as accurate, the speed as in Fable 3. Fable 3 was a lot more solid and fluid, and the motion of it, you almost, feel the combat, feel yourself through your controller. I couldn't necessarily feel that. I just felt like I was hitting buttons on my controller and then something was reacting on my screen. That's how I felt in Fable Legends. I know, but I mean, there were improvements, and I did like it, and I was still looking forward to it. But the combat on that, and I don't feel like that was the equivalent to Fable 3. I'm sorry, Lord Kelly, K-Bot2.
Yeah,
Sorry.
his name, you could definitely get a tongue caught across it. But, we're going to go ahead and move on with the topic. We kind of got sidetracked a little bit with that. But if this were to be a remake or a sequel, what developer would you want to make this? Let's just say that, you're the one telling Microsoft that you want this developer to make it, and you had the final say. Who would it be?
Oh my God, that is just like, I'm gonna be honest. If I had the ultimate, if I could pick the developer, it would be Bethesda all day long. There would be no other than them doing it. Of course, that would be another thing. But that's who I would want to do to make that. Most definitely Bethesda.
I would completely agree with you on that. And speaking of that, it is kind of weird because I hear kind of rumors going around that Bethesda is making a Fable, and the reason that Microsoft moved up their conference to Sunday was so Microsoft can announce the Fable game, and Bethesda can have it on their on their stage.
Okay, you know what? Don't play with me, game. Don't play with me like that, because I would pass out.
Someone told me that, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, there's a very slim chance that's happening, but if that were be the case, it would kind of make sense why, but Microsoft needed to go before Bethesda. But
okay, I was teasing my Sony fans, my Sony friends.
Naughty Dog cannot make it.
Crying, tears in the crowd.
Nicodemus is in there saying Naughty Dog needs to make Fable.
Nah, nah. Go away, Nicodemus. Oh man, that would be the ultimate, because Skyrim is my ultimate RPG of like all time. That's like my number one super duper, and then Fable is number two. But Bethesda, shoot, that would be crazy. That would be literal. Oh wow, that to me, that would just obliterate everything. Nicodemus, there's nothing you could say to me, to Fame. Man, I would tease you to no end on Double XP if they come up there and announce that Bethesda would be making Fable a reboot. Shoot, there would be tears in the crowd from Mamacita, for real, and I can admit that.
There's a comment in the section. I used to think Tim Dakota was a good team for Fable, since their original project was Project Spark. Were good, but they got canned. Yeah, I would agree with you. They could make a good Fable, but it's one thing to like initiate an engine for your overall fans to make a Fable game, not a Fable game, but any game they thought of. But it's another thing to actually make a Fable game.
Right.
But I would not put it past them. I think they would have the requirement, skills, and development to make a Fable game. It's just, could they make a good one is the problem.
I think they could make a good one. I know Bethesda has a history of being, the Bug City developer. I mean, oh my gosh, I as much as I love Skyrim, I know that there's like so many bugs in that game. But even with the bugs, it's still the best RPG. There's still like I still sank over 600 hours in the original
A lot of the
Skyrim.
times, like, as long as Bethesda don't make like great game crashing bugs in their games,
Hmm.
it's usually fine because a lot of their bugs is just minor shit that you just laugh out more than like
Right.
really hate on. But there are some times where there are bugs in Bethesda games that you're like, I'm done, and then just walk
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, I get that, especially from my PlayStation friends dealing with Skyrim. That was just, I mean, that game Skyrim was just completely, unplayable. Now we could also say that the PS3 at that time, that cell process, like, may have had a lot to do with that as well, trying to develop for it. But I think still, but that's the game breaking bugs. But with that, we also know that Bethesda makes pretty darn good games, storytelling, and especially in open world settings and environment, they're pretty good at that. So
Yeah, definitely. But it's yeah, there is that weird that company that they just signed a deal with. I can't remember what their name is. They made the Skylanders or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly their name. So it's rumored that they might be working on it. And I'm just like, please no. Like the people who made Skylanders, please do not tell me they're over there making Fable. Because like
no.
that will kill it for me.
Now here's I mean, the thing is, we know that that studios can try something new. I mean, look what Guerrilla Games did with Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, no one
Studio
thought,
Gobo. Thank
you know.
you, Will. That people with the name. I don't want them working on Fable. The name itself.
What is it? Studio Go? Oh no. Oh no, I couldn't imagine introduce reboot
I don't even
of
want
Fable.
I don't even want. See, my biggest fear is seeing that on the title screen,
No,
developed by Studio Gobo.
No, they can't do that. They can't do that. They can't do that.
But for me, when it comes to the whole who should make the game, I think it comes down to a few people. It's like in the chat earlier. It could go down to if they wanted that, multiple people come together to make an experience, then maybe BioWare could make a killer ass Fable game. If they wanted that single player, adventure game, then I think Project Red would make probably the best Fable that you could possibly make. Or if they, those are I think Bethesda could make a phenomenal game, but I don't think they've really worked a whole lot with third-party games. So like not third-party, third-person view games. And I don't want it to be a first-person game. So, I don't know how I feel about them branching it. But, Bethesda has phenomenal talent. So they would make it work if they were making one.
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. But yeah. Yeah.
But, we're going to go ahead and I did have one.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. BioWare is a great choice. And Microsoft has a history with them. A pretty good history with BioWare. So
yeah,
we know that history, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the past they said Microsoft could have bought BioWare in the past before.
Man, that's past, hasn't it?
Yeah. So it's just a hard topic to really, because it's like I said, this whole podcast is speculation. We don't really know. For all we know, they could go on there, they could jump right out there and be like 343 is making Fable. I'll grab my head, look straight down, be like, what is Microsoft doing?
You don't think 343 could handle making a Fable?
I think I'd rather have Coalition make a Fable game than 343. Because it's like, I want someone that's kind of made the same, like,
But again, no one thought that Guerrilla Games, who made, Killzone, no one thought they could pull off a Horizon Zero Dawn either. And didn't they do it?
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah, and they did it darn well.
But let's look at it before Horizon Zero Dawn was announced. No one thought they would do anything good besides they did Resistance, right? Or Killzone. No, they did Killzone. It's like it's hard for me to grasp someone making a completely different viewpoint game with, going from a typical first-person shooter, point A to point B, cap the objective, kill these people, go point P to point C, do the same thing. That's how Halo. But by the way, I hate campaign. I hate the Halo campaigns. I like the story, but I hate the gameplay. But that's besides the point. So, I can't see them visually doing it. But, I'm not saying they couldn't do it. But I feel like it's kind of hard to go from one thing to another, like in a blink of an eye, especially when, they're working on Halo 6 too. So, they might, if they were making it, it wouldn't be a huge amount of people doing it.
Okay, you know what? See, Nicodemus just made a statement that, Sony devs are talented. See, and that's that's the whole point that I'm making. No, Nicodemus, I am not inclined to agree with that. I'm not saying that Sony developers aren't talented. I'm just saying that, we'll often say a lot of Xbox fans want, want Xbox first party devs to kind of go outside their norm and and explore other types of genres and other types of games. So I think this is the time that Xbox is really screaming for that, to be honest.
It's not necessary that Sony has like an imaginary great talent. It's that Sony's more creative to letting them try shit they want to do.
Right.
So you can't really experience the different aspects a developer can do when they've been making the same game for 5 to 10 years. So like Sony, I'll give that to Sony. Sony is very like, go do what you want to do, and it benefits them. That's how they came up with games like The Last of Us, because they went from Uncharted to The Last of Us, which is critically one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
So that's on them. But Microsoft's more of a we want to build a studio around that particular game, which you can't really bash them for it, because Sony did it for the longest time.
Well, and that's the thing, and it worked. The thing is, it worked, but we've got to change with the times. We've got to, is that, that motto or that line of thought, is that working in today's environment, especially with them closing? I mean, they've closed down Lionhead. Okay, they're closing down a number of their studios over the past 2 or 3 years, and not just studios, their games. And so obviously that system isn't necessarily working for them. So they need to adapt. And if you're going to kind of trim the fat, you're going to, trim your studios down a bit, then you just need to maybe add people in so that you can develop more games and different genres of games. Because we're screaming for that.
It's like I said, if Microsoft wants to keep them on Halo projects and keep Coalition on Gears projects, like, try a different spinoff than Halo Wars and ODST. If you absolutely have to keep them on Halo, like try a third person cover shooter with Spartan Lock drop behind enemy lines trying to get an evacuation zone, like something different that isn't first person. You know what I'm saying? But that's a completely other topic. So, when it comes to my next topic is definitely, I was going to talk about the artwork and how we feel it should go, but we kind of touched upon that back. And I saw in the comment section of people bringing up, should Fable have multiplayer?
Oh,
I think co-op's fine. I don't think it needs a multiplayer. I think if they wanted to encourage co-op, and they'd have to do the Fable 3 co-op, not the Fable 2. You pick an AI that like a 4 standard setup that you look like, and that's all. Like Fable 3, whoever you invited, they brought their actual character from their story.
Yeah.
So, make it more accessible, make it more easier to really jump in there. If they wanted to do like a Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer, I guess like a co-op multiplayer, but I don't think every game needs multiplayer. A well-established story-oriented game could do just co-op.
Yeah, I think they should just kind of stick to co-op. And what's interesting, I've been watching, the State of Decay 2s, them dropping and releasing the screenshots and kind of following that. And I find it interesting that they are saying with State of Decay 2, it being open world and the co-op, each player being able to take on their own quest and still play together. And I kind of find that captivating, because I'm not sure of anybody who's done that before, if it has been done. But just imagine you're online co-oping together, and then you can do your own quest. And I can envision a Fable where we don't necessarily have to stay. How in Fable 2 and Fable 3 you had to stay in the vicinity of one another, so you couldn't like veer too far away from each other. But just imagine being able to, okay, well, you go to one part of the area and I go to another, you know, and we're looting or fighting enemies. I mean, even if we're working on the same quest together, we're not necessarily forced to stay within a certain uh,
Yeah,
area of each other. I
it,
just
it
think,
needs it doesn't need to be tangled to the same
yeah,
camera angle because
yeah,
they did do
exactly.
that.
Yeah, so that would just be that would just to me would be kind of uh, it's different, and that would be something new. And I do see an innovative, and I think Phil Spencer mentioned that today, trying to bring innovative gameplay, which would I think that would be definitely be innovative, especially in an open, and then Fable being open world versus linear, and that's a kind of a different thing too. What do we want to see with that? Do we want it to be linear like it's been, or do we want it to be open world?
I think co-op. I'm not open. I think making it like open world. Like I think open world should be how they like. Not necessarily. I'm tired of people making open world games just to put it on their box. like like if people
Right.
make an open world game, make it correctly. You know, I
Yes.
when I think of like an open world game, I think of an interactive world that no matter where you go, that the world tries to interact with you. You know,
Thank you.
I feel like a good open world game has limits that you could go to, and you have to do something in that world to physically get to another part of the map. Like an
Yeah.
open world isn't just a game that you launch into and it's automatically go anywhere you want. It's like because that's just like when I feel like an open world game, like Skyrim is an open world game.
Mm-hmm,
You could go
mm-hmm.
anywhere you want, but they
Yeah.
shit to do where you go where you want to.
Yeah.
Zelda is like a more narrative open world game. Breath of the Wild, it's not as expansive as Zelda, but you can spend 30 40 hours just fucking with the enemies with your powers. So I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
guess that gets a buy. So, if they made it open world, it Fable could really benefit from an open world because if you still keep that British humor in it, you can make that world so immersive that you're like, I can't deal with this place right now. I gotta go. This place is bugging the shit out of me. It definitely would be Xbox because Xbox does own the IP to Fable, so I don't see anyone else making it unless they did sell it and didn't tell anyone. But it's definitely when it goes to the whole co-op thing. I don't want multiplayer in it. I'm sorry, Lord Kabatsu. I think multiplayer would be a mistake. I want that co-op experience. If they do put that in there, I'm all about co-op. You want to put there and let me roll with one of my closest friends? I'm all about that. But
Yes.
don't force multiplayer down my throat when none of the Fables have been multiplayer or like a dark. It sounds like a Dark Souls-ish. Do you think it should be kind of harder on the terms of Dark Souls?
Ooh. Mm-mm. I don't
I think
I
there
don't think so.
I think there could be a balance to like a Dark Souls, but not Dark Souls.
Yeah, no, because I think you want this game in as many hands as possible, and I just think
Yeah,
if you kind of go down that Dark Souls path, you're
they
gonna
want
kind of like you're gonna cut the kind of make it niche like. Then I don't think you're gonna kind of reach the numbers that
you
you
got to
want.
have a good mixture. You got to like if they
Yeah,
wanted to make it a little bit harder, cool. I'm
have
all
them
for
all.
that. But don't make it to where I get hit one time by the boss and it's done. Like
Right.
that's for harder game modes, not the base game mode.
But I mean,
So
put in a legendary mode, or the different levels or whatever. If people want it, if you want to experience it, if you're more equipped, or your skill level or whatever, you kind of like that balls to the wall kind of gameplay. But
yeah, and then a lot of the gameplay in the battle mechanics in Fable were mocking your opponents too. You could get those expressions to mock your opponents, and some people like the werewolves would berserk them to attack you even more.
okay.
So definitely since I think we've kicked the multiplayer thing to the ground. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is if they were to make a reboot or a sequel, what do you think the key features that they need to put into this game to make it thrive in the gaming community, in the gaming industry that we live in today?
Oh, oh wow. Well, I mean, when I say unfortunately, we are in sort of like this graphic eye candy, you know, can I guess time frame now with gaming. And mind you, I'm all for graphics and eye candy, but I think that's definitely a necessity. It is gonna have to captivate its audience on screen, front and center. I mean, and I would, this being, if this is a Scorpio, if it's a launch or a game or something that's coming down the road, I mean, I guess we can pretty much say that that's pretty obvious that's going to be. But definitely, I think graphically, and of course, and I know I'm talking about the tech stuff, but and 60. Well, I guess if there's some type of co-op involved, but the 60 frames will just be like
Yeah,
ideal.
as much as I hate to say this, like they have to make this game, look like it's got to have the pixels that everyone
Yes,
wants. It's got to have, that 4K is important on Scorpio because you don't have it for some reason. People boycott your product, and I
yes.
it needs that. It's like
It,
Recore. I feel like Recore would have sold better if the game looked phenomenal while you're platforming.
mm-hmm.
But
It would have, even if Recore had been more even visually on Ori standards, I think it would have. It definitely would have, because Ori was just absolutely beautiful to watch and to play. So it's definitely going to have to captivate you in that way. And then what we've talked about before, bringing in that combat system that's sharp and precise combat system. It is definitely, and then story, of course. Stories. I mean, it used to be where your story wasn't so good, but if the gameplay, the visuals, all that. No, we want good stories now. That's where we are. So, I think every aspect of gaming that is required that we all want, they would have to hit it out of the park. Does it have to be perfect? No. I don't think it needs perfection, but I think those key points, graphics, resolution, and frames, and great storyline and combat, will just make this game uh, just take Xbox and Scorpio where it really
it could be
needs to
their
be.
it could be their single orientated game that
Yeah.
everyone's been wanting.
Yes. Yes. And then you're talking about those of us that know about the game. There are so many that don't. They don't know what Fable is. We talk about Fable. What is Fable? So then I think the name itself is enough, whether you add something to it or not. But I think the name itself it kind of gravitate you towards it to look at. And then, I just think that Fable has every aspect of what Xbox is missing right now.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I do have a couple. I have some good questions in the comment section. So Fastback did say I didn't see him respond to it. He said which Xbox studio will be making it. That's the thing. I don't see any Xbox studio making this game at the moment. What do you see any studio making this game at the moment that Xbox first party owns?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
The one that asked earlier if we think a Fable 4 is in the works, who would
Mhm.
it be by? And he asked what Xbox studio. So I don't think there is a studio that Microsoft hasn't canned or owns at the moment that's not working on another game.
Yeah, because I mean, Rare is working on Sea of Thieves, and that's pretty massive, massive development. So I don't really see them doing it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
obviously 343 is not doing nothing. I don't know if the people who make
what about
Ori,
Forza? Didn't we hear something about the Forza team?
yeah, they're making,
Them making something.
but I'm pretty sure it was been rumored to be multi-plat.
You think
Yeah,
that'd be multiply?
yeah, multi-plat. I think it's been rumored. I don't know about if it is or not, but I do think there was rumored that it's going to be multi-plat. So,
Mm.
and who knows when it comes to stuff like that, though. But another person did want to ask, should Fable give you the option to be a male or female? I think all of them has, besides the first one.
Yeah.
The first one might have too.
No, the first one wasn't. It wasn't. Not the first one. But 2 and 3, you could choose, but you defaulted to the male in the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he
So
had his sister. It was he had his sister in the first one.
yeah, definitely. So he says if they do give you the choice of being a male or female, which that's a pretty much given. There is going to be a choice between them. They both need to have different storylines, and I could agree with you. That would be nice if regardless what gender you picked, the story was different for the
Yeah.
genders you picked. Which
Yeah, that would be.
it would be kind of weird how they would choose different stories just because of your gender, but it would be cool to see how they would come up with a way to
Mhm.
do it.
Mhm.
So Cal is in the comment section. He is coming in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump on to the next topic.
Yeah, thank you, Fastback Playgrounds. I don't know why I couldn't think
Yeah,
of
I
that.
knew it was Playgrounds, but
Yeah, I could. It just wasn't coming to me. But yeah, it definitely will have to be supported like Halo and Gears. I agree with you on that, Fastback. They will have definitely, please, Microsoft, if you're going to make a Fable, you got to put your money behind it and you got to put it out so everybody can see and hear about it and know about it. I mean, I want to see it every time I watch. Well, if a game is on, I don't care if it's a tennis match, a soccer game, a football game. I want to see I want to see that everywhere and anywhere. I
yeah,
find,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, Fable is just it's definitely it's a lovely franchise for me, man. Like I love Halo. I do. I'm not a big fan of Gears. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't think Gears is trash, but I'm on that borderline between I just don't like Gears, and it's just I feel like one of these franchises, neither it was Fable, Halo, or Gears, one of these have always brought you into the Xbox brand.
mm-hmm.
And a lot of people got into the Xbox brand from Call of Duty too.
Right, right.
What's up, Cal? So I will want to talk about Fable Legends. I didn't really want to bring it up a whole lot, but would you have liked for Microsoft to have kept the flow for Fable Legends and at least launch it as like a preview or something?
Uh,
But I felt like that's not really. It wasn't really a thing they could have done because it was a free to play game.
yeah, that whole thing with Fable Legends is it's still confusing to me. I mean, I still don't quite understand why and how that happened. I mean, and I've gotten over my complete letdown of that because I was so looking forward to playing this game. But yeah, I think I don't see why they could not have just go ahead, just release the game and let us play it. I mean, I don't know, were they thinking they didn't want to continue to have, because you still have to support the game if you release it. I get that, but still, it's like you put in all that work, all that time. You had us in that beta for 2 years. Okay, you do away with the studio, but then you do it with the game too. So yeah, I think it was fine tuned enough where that game could have just been released as free to play, and then the system that you put in place for with microtransactions, and they talk about how they were trying to do some things different with that. They weren't going to have certain requirements to be able to advance your character. It was all about, just optional and how you wanted to play your character if you chose to, but it wasn't like mandatory to have to use microtransactions. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I still don't quite understand why they made a decision to can Fable Legends. I get why you made the decision to can Lionhead, but I don't know. Fable Legends, I think should have been put out there for us to at least play it and experience it.
What do you feel, Cal? Did you know any insider info on the whole Fable Legends?
First and foremost, man, I want to apologize. I'm sorry for being late. I've been so busy with this E3 stuff and booking these events and these interviews and stuff like that I forgot that the messages were coming on my private chat and I was on my Tick podcast channel the whole time. So I do
Oh,
apologize about
it's
that.
fine.
Um, as far as Fable is concerned, here's the problem with Fable. Went wrong, and this is how leadership shifted direction and what it wanted to do. When I got to a big debate about this too, and not to jump off subject, but it all boils down to leadership and direction. So with Don Matrick and Balmer, you think about what they tried to put out the first on Xbox. If you look at all the titles they tried to put out, the $1 billion they spent on a lot of third-party IPs that they either trademarked or they owned, a lot of service titles, Sea of Thieves being possibly one of them, a lot of microtransaction titles. And then you had Fable Legends. Now, the Fable team didn't want to do Fable Legends, my understanding. Do Fable 4. But they pushed out, Microsoft supposedly was making them do Fable Legends because obviously they wanted something that was long term. It reminds me of what Phil Spencer said when he talked about the longevity of Destiny. I think they wanted their own Destiny with Fable. Fable being kind of like a MOBA type game that really had a long lifespan behind it. But the more we all played that beta, people disliked it, honestly. To me, the graphics were great. It was amazing. You can tell it was a major improvement over what they were doing with Fable in the first place. But the characters were bland. They were limited in ability. I didn't like the central hub of like the whole treasure chest thing. It didn't seem as grand as a Fable would be. And I don't know if that was going to work. So I think as the new management moved in, and Phil coming in and then Cita coming in and things like that, they probably made a decision and said that this probably isn't going to be a successful title. And they've already invested so much money into it.
Yeah, that's
and then
where
the studio itself is like either.
That's where a lot of people, get a lot of things mixed up with Microsoft. It's not really a huge excuse on Microsoft's part, but having such a huge shift in leadership in the middle of all these game developing's lifespan is devastating.
You completely switch direction and culture. What I got into not really an argument about, but a debate about was about the whole Lawbreaker thing and how everybody was going crazy about third-party marketing deals and how 360 had all these third-party marketing deals and it really put them at the forefront of things. And what I tried to explain before when I went on my rant a long time ago was how the leadership of Microsoft is different in the 360 era. Nobody seems to understand that. So when I was saying Xbox may be better off without Microsoft, I wasn't trying to bash Microsoft. I'm just saying that I felt that Microsoft, because of the mistakes of the 360 era, as successful as the 360 was, they spent a lot of money. Like really, they were in the red the whole generation. Red Ring of Death. They bought a ton of third-party IDs. They spent $10 on Grand Theft Auto DLC. Remember the Ballad of Tony or whatever his name was in the biker thing from Grand Theft Auto 4? I believe they had got DLC for one of those Grand Theft Auto games, and they spent $10 million on the exclusivity for like 30 days.
Wow.
Microsoft, but that's the kind of Microsoft that people loved. People bought Grand Theft Auto for that. People bought Call of Duty for that, but it was such a waste of money. And then you looked at where's the IPs. So to me, I look at what Phil's coming in and doing. I'm looking at what Satia's coming in and doing. The marketing for games aren't as big compared to back in the day. Halo would drop, man. You would see this thing in movie theaters. You got them in Manhattan doing all these major events, Gears of War, all these big things they would always promote and push. That's kind of died down. You don't see those marketing things. You don't see any marketing for Recore. You barely saw any marketing for Quantum Break. They weren't doing it months out in advance. They were doing it weeks before. Hitting the people you need to hit. Then you talk about Phil saying he doesn't want to do third-party deals anymore, probably because the Tomb Raider fiasco, which to me was just absolutely embarrassing to the brand. It just, there's a lot. Gobbling up all these third-party marketing deals. But for the last 6 months, all you heard was people saying Microsoft needs more first-party games. Now they need more third-party deals. It's like you can't have both. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes, it's like the goalpost just continues to change. You just move it. You move it. And whatever is blowing in the wind or it's the topic of the day at that moment, that's where you want Microsoft to be. And I think, and I would agree, I think Microsoft needs to just be steady and they need to be decisive. And it sounds like Phil Spencer is pretty much, he's decisive. He says, this is not my focus, third-party deals and business. That's business. We respect it, but that's just not our focus.
Right.
So,
go ahead, Ma.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that's when I look at Fable and the cancellation of Fable, and unfortunately the cancellation of Scalebound. These things financially wasn't viable for Microsoft long term. Investing money wasn't working long term. So you got to nip those things in the butt. You look at the turnaround of them not doing these third party deals and investing in themselves. The one key thing, I mean, even when we had him on the show, and even when I talked to him, privately when I was at E3 a few times, he always talked about being like Nintendo. Nintendo don't focus on third parties like that. They really focus on IP, and that kind of sustains them. And I think that's what Microsoft wants to do. People want them to do both at the same time, like Sony is doing. But I really want people to really think about what Sony did. A whole bunch of first-party games the past year. They dropped a bunch of third-party exclusives the past year.
Yeah, I think they've only dropped Forza. Not Horizon Zero Dawn is their first party.
Then you turn around at the end of the year, you have some sequels that will return, which is what they're invested in, and then you have a whole bunch of third-party marketing deals. But it's the illusion of Microsoft, of Sony pumping out this first party that they have this, and they do have an amazing first party. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to knock them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to give people perspective. You understand what I'm saying? Because if Fable Legends drops this fall, I mean this spring, which is when it was supposed to come out, with Scalebound, Voodoo Vents, and then nobody says anything. But those two games get canceled. So your whole first 6 months is dead. And no one's really looking at the remastered Xbox games as something to be cheery about. I'm sure that's great for the fan bases and for the people out there who truly want to support Phantom Dust and Voodoo Vents. But the point that I'm trying to make is that leadership is the reason why these things are happening. And the focus is different. If it was the Balma Matrix era, they would throw money at everything. And I bet you both Scalebound would still be in production and Fable Legends would have released. But because it's not that era, it's a different era, and it's a change, then you're going to get different rules, and you're going to move in a different direction. And one of the key things that if you haven't heard our interview with the father of Xbox, Seamus Blackley, one of the key things that he said was that when Phil decided to do the Scorpio, it's like an era change. Okay, he's doing everything that he could possibly do to make this console what the console should be out the gate, not what the Xbox One was. Mm-hmm. But it also allows him to turn around to the board and say, hey, I need X amount of money to put new games on Scorpio. Because
easier to free up money if you got an excuse.
It's right. If it's easy to free up money to make new stuff, if you have new hardware to push the new stuff. Hardware that's kind of stagnant at this point and not pushing anything. So with the new hardware, you have an excuse. Hey, let me get $500 million to produce 3 or 4 new games for Scorpio. Now people look like, oh, what about Xbox? Yeah, it's gonna scale down for Xbox, of course, but they're gonna build these games on Scorpio without question to maximize the potential of that console. So I think a lot of people are looking at what Microsoft is doing. Like, why aren't they grabbing third-party IPs? It's because they are pumping all of their time, their money, and their production into Scorpio and trying to make games for Scorpio.
And that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And I think if we, and I'm talking about we as gamers and we as Xbox fans, will kind of stop reacting to the frantic news of the day and the hysteria of the moment and kind of understand the long-term goal and vision. And as you so eloquently stated, I think, we could just save ourselves a lot of sanity because I just don't get caught up into the fray of it all like that. Now, I did wonder about Fable Legends. I mean, the Gamer Addict. I mean, not Gamer. Yeah, you asked a question: could that game have still been released? And because I know a lot of people were saying just release it, in the way that it was. But I think there's going to be cost for supporting that game, even if you still, release it. But, we had invested so much time in it, and I had put in 2 years in it. It's like, I want to play this game. So there was there was some bitterness there for me. And I admit that because, I'm a Fable to the bone. But,
right. Yeah, I just want Fable. I want Fable to be rebooted. I know a lot of people don't want that.
That's what I would, yes.
I know a lot of fans out there don't want that. But I mean, just hear me out for 1 second. Let's be realistic here. Let's just look at the history of Fable. The first Fable was a monster success. It didn't accomplish, and think about this was what Peter Molyneux was running.
First Fable was way ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The first Fable was ahead of its time. It definitely did its thing. But then you look at the competition and how Fable faded. Mass Effect came out, and you had Knights of the Old Republic prior to that, but we're talking about games where choices matter. This was the whole plight of Fable. The British humor, the folklore, the history of the game. As you moved on to the next 2 iterations, they jumped so far ahead in the years that you didn't even have the same protagonists and antagonists. You completely had new characters, which took on new stories. I really liked the second game, but I really wasn't a fan of the third one. You have the whole Fable, the Magic Connect game that wound up coming out, which pretty much flopped.
Journey. Yeah.
Journey. Fable Journey. And then
that was like a slap to the face.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Then you turn around and you're trying to pump out the Fable. Beyond that, those games didn't really knock sales out of the park compared to the first one, especially the third one.
Yeah.
So that game was declining. Peter Molyneux leaves. The game is on a decline. You need to recapture people in a way that you're kind of renewing what Fable is without losing what Fable was.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do, but people aren't really gravitating to Fable the way it was. It's always been looked at as a B-tier game. It's never been looked at on the level of a Gears, a Forza, a Halo, any of those games. It's always been in the realm of a Crackdown or a Fable or something else lower in the realm like not Viva Pinata. I won't go that low, but it's been second tier. But if you need to make that game first tier, this is your Western RPG. This is your exclusive title that you can put out there to the fans and say, you can only get this awesome, choices Western RPG on Xbox. So in order for you to do that, you need to really look at not what everybody is doing, but what's successful. Build upon what's successful and really reboot the franchise to the point that they can really start over. And that's really what they need to do.
Yes.
Start over.
When you go back and look at some of their older games, like the Fable, and you go and play it, and I know some people would say, oh, the cartoon, the art style, even with Phantom Dust, people, complain, okay, it's an older game. But when you go back and play those games and you look at the combat system, I mean, for the times that those games were released, it was very unique in its combat style and its approach. Something that we don't benefit from in 2017. It's like this. We're this system of it's the same techniques, the same style. Everybody's doing what everybody else is doing it. But those games were very unique and original in their gameplay and their style. When I play Phantom Dust, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really unique. The orbs, and I choose the orbs, and I have like this timed manner in which to use them and compete or fight my enemies, and I can pick up different orbs and kind of use different abilities. It was, to me, that was really fresh. Why is a combat style system for a game that's released in 2004 fresh for me in 2017? That's crazy. That's ridiculous. So I think if they look back at some of those games, with Fable, the first Fable, the combat stuff, the way they utilize magic, and just I think they have so much they could pull from. And then you talk about putting that on newer hardware. Oh my gosh, I just think they could do so much with Fable and really bring that game front and center as a true like you say, Western RPG that I think could really, I mean, not be rivaled, at least not for the next year or two. I really
Fable,
do.
because the name Fable doesn't have any true origin. There's, like you said, there's so much potential you could do with the game. A game like that could be Microsoft's Final Fantasy. And what I mean by that is you can have these different worlds. The Fable, you have to follow the same character, but you need to be able to have the same combat system. You don't want to change it too much, but you need to be able to have the same familiarity as previous games. But every game is fresh, every game is new. It's one of the reasons why I was really interested in them picking up Rise. I thought if they were able to buy Rise would make an amazing franchise for Microsoft in a way that it's a franchise because of what Rise Son of Rome is, but because you have this game Rise. And if you haven't played Rise, I'm about to spoil it for you right now, so I suggest you turn your mic off. In Rise, the gods play a major role in the game, manipulating things. About Rome. No one said it couldn't be Rise about Alexander the Great, about Hannibal. It couldn't be Rise about Genghis Khan. It couldn't be Rise about all of these the 300. It couldn't take place in different eras in time where you play some soldier, general, warrior that's rising to the occasion for your people to stop something. Just a small part of history. And you can change that game every time. And you can have an amazing combat system. The downfall of Rise is that you're a Roman. The Romans had a shield and a sword. You had limited weapons, limited enemies, repetitive because of the combat system. But what it did great was it was brutal. It was a hack and slash. It was an adventure. The story was actually really decent. And graphically, for its time, it was amazing. To this day, it's probably still top 10 if you look at it.
Yeah, it sure is.
So I think that it would be really cool if they were able to pick that up. But if they can't do that, you can absolutely do that with Fable. It's just Fable. And you have to be creative. I think Microsoft needs to be more creative and less reliant on third party. I said this 1,000 times, why I never liked the idea of them doing owned IP exclusives. Because if those games no longer sell or they flop, then you're dependent on the third party to say, okay, I want to do a second one or try again. And if they decide that they don't want to, you'll never see that game again. Then you have to turn around and build a new studio anyway just to bring the game out.
Exactly. And the thing is with Sony, I think Sony can get away with that right now because they're the market leader. You have 60 million consoles right now out there, or almost. So you can get away with that for now. But then, what happens if you're looking at the future and we're looking at where we're going? What happens next generation? Do you have to start all over again? So I think Microsoft is smart to build a foundation and rebuilding their first party with a different focus. I think because, we are forever changing. I think we all can agree with that, as this gamer climate and environment is forever evolving. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting. We were talking before you came on, and it's just funny how you just came right in and you kind of bullet pointed on some of the factors and key factors that we were talking about with Fable. But we were just kind of saying who would we like to see remake Fable. I said Bethesda. That was my answer to it. I'm just interested as to who would you like to see make Fable, which first party studio or any other studio that if you could just pick one, who would you want to see make it?
I mean, that's a tough one. I love Bethesda, but I can't envision them. I mean, clearly CD Projekt Red is the closest, only because the worlds of Witcher and Fable, they don't look similar, but they have that
got a lot of similar aspects to it.
Right, they have like a lot of error, right, where dealing with monsters and things like that. Like you have the Balverines and the undead and things like
the
that in
Hollow
Fable.
Men, the Hobbs, and the
Right.
Trolls. Yeah.
Kind of plays into what Witcher has as well. So that's kind of ideal. But honestly, I would give a new dev a chance. And you know who's a very interesting that's really on the come up. And I've been actually impressed with the second version of their game. The guys who make Oceanhorn. The guys who make Oceanhorn the first game, and it's been pretty successful. But the new one looks completely different from the first one. That game is more like Zelda. Is that it's not similar to Fable in its era, but it's similar in that it's kind of like a Fable folk type game. If you want to give somebody new a chance, you want to maybe reach out to an indie type developer and see what they can do with the game. Because financially, then you don't have to worry about kicking out the big bucks. But if you want to work with somebody, I think the best studio is probably CD Projekt Red, and that's a very difficult thing to do because they don't even do exclusive content.
Yeah, it's
It take a significant amount of money to make them go against that.
Exactly. And and just to finish up, man, I just wanted to say that I want people to understand something because I know everybody's like, well, why don't they? You still got to get third-party IPs. Listen, Microsoft will have third-party IPs. They'll have their typical Fables, their Maddens, their Battlefields, or whatever it is they're working with. I wouldn't be surprised if they got not CD Projekt Red. They got 2044 or whatever it's called, 2077. They have such a great relationship with the Witcher team. Not to say that can't happen, because I really thought they had a great relationship with BioWare and EA and thought they would get Mass Effect, but that wound up going to. I would like people to just take a step back and just think about this for 1 second. It came out first couple years. The only thing people talked about was how sparse their lineup was.
And people kept saying,
I remember.
people kept saying, just wait for Uncharted.
Yeah,
right. This is not a shot against Sony. This is all about Microsoft. I want to correlate what Sony did to what Microsoft is trying to do now. Now, they supposedly had a sparse lineup. You didn't get your Uncharted out the gate. You didn't get your God of Wars out the gate. You didn't get any of the big titles. They had 1 or 2 hits early on. They had a lot of third-party games, a lot of third-party deals, marketing deals, a lot of Japanese games as usual. And don't get me wrong, like I said, PlayStation is an amazing system. I have a PS4. I love the console, everything. But it took them 3 years to get to Horizon Zero Dawn, out of War at the end of the year, Last of Us 2, Uncharted 4, all of those big heavy hitters that's coming out besides the third-party games like Bloodborne, and I forget the other game that was ranked pretty high prior to that. Other than that, all the other games were similar to Xbox in low 80s, high 80s, mid 80s, nothing knocking anything out the park, but it took them X amount of time to get to that. But they had a lot of third-party deals. Microsoft came out the gate early, Overdrives, your Rises, the Tomb Raider exclusive deal for whatever time. You had your Halos come out, your Gears of War, your Forces. They dropped their games. Those games came out. Some of them were successful. Some of them kind of was like, eh. But in this time, people wanted them to jump on the third-party bandwagon to get those marketing deals. But this is a reset. Take Phil, now that he's in charge, X amount of time to get to where Sony is with their games. I know people are like, you can't rush it. What about the next E3? The only E3 that was bad to me was last year's E3. I was watching in 2014, 13, 15. But show new games every year, except for last year, for 2016.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. 2016 was the only time where they showed the same crap from the year before, and I wasn't impressed with it, except for Scorpio and the S console.
Yeah, and that kind of let us know what this next year was going to be like last E3. We knew it was going to be sparse.
We knew it was going to be
right,
based on what they showed. Exactly. They didn't even go to Gamescom.
Yep.
That's how you knew it was trash. So that's what I'm saying. So, but the 3 years to that, that's why I'm like, people are like, oh, wait on E3 again. Wait on E3. What are you talking about? Every year prior to, you can't name me a holiday Microsoft thing drop something hot from 2013 on up to 2015, 2016. Early on this year, they had a bad year. It takes some time for Microsoft to get back. They canceled studios, they canceled the game, they lost a few smaller studios. They got to get back to what they're doing. And right now, I don't think it's wise to take $5 million, $10 million to invest in marketing commercials for third-party games. And I get that, the perception and things like that. I just don't think it's wise at this point when for you to make games. And they need to really focus on what they're doing at home before they can start reaching out to third parties again. You got to be able to take care of home first before you can even walk out the house. So, I mean, that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, I totally get that. And I'm actually glad that they are taking that approach.
It's definitely like, a lot of people, they act like Microsoft hasn't done nothing like the entire time the Xbox One's been out, but it's like it's been actually the exact opposite. Microsoft did everything at the beginning of generation, and like they're kind of slimming down towards this now, because every game that's came out till now, it was done around the time or before Phil Spencer took his position where he is now. And it's like I feel like this E3 we'll see more aspects that he did himself.
Yeah, I think this E3 is going to be impressive, man. I mean, listen, Microsoft, if you've never been to E3, it's not hard to explain, but if you've never been to E3, the conference, the placement of the booths, third party, especially the big ones, EA, but they're all in like the West Hall, which is in the LA Convention Center, all the way down like a whole bridge across the way, back towards the Xbox area, passing Hideki, hoping he didn't block me. Was so excited to see him. And I'm talking about Kamaya from Scalebound, and just shaking his hand and him looking at me like he didn't understand the damn thing I was saying. But it was cool to shake his hand and meet him in person. You know what I'm saying? It was dope. He had his shades on and everything. Cool as hell. Anyway, so the other side, when you go to the other side, you have the giant Xbox area. You have PlayStation, and back of your right, you have Nintendo with their like kiosk. Like Nintendo is like going into a GameStop. It's like just a bunch of it was a bunch of Wii U kiosks, and everybody was online trying to play games and stuff like that. Just weird. But this year, Microsoft is in the third party area. I wonder strategically why that is.
It is an interesting move just to complete. It's because and for people that I think it's kind of hard to really describe what he means by across a bridge. It's not just across a bridge. It's in pretty much a whole other building. Like it's completely far away from Nintendo and Sony that you can get in this facility.
Okay.
Right, and they're surrounded. They're going to be surrounded by EA, Activision, but that's all these third party they're gonna be surrounded by. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm wondering if they will have Scorpio kiosks there, games running on them. They can't market those games in public, but they can market those games at E3.
And then you go
because they're still games.
And then you go from you market it at E3, and then you can't market it. But after you've let these
gamers do a commercial, but you let the gamers can play it.
Yeah, you let these gamers and these these reviewers and these, especially since E3's open this year, and then you just let word of mouth take over.
Right. So I'm wondering strategically if Microsoft is doing that to get party area where you can just kind of gravitate from Microsoft to Activision, from Microsoft to Bethesda. They've really set themselves up in a position where they're surrounded by all the third parties. So, it's going to be interesting what they're doing. I mean, I've been getting invites to everything. I've literally had to just.
I'm so jealous.
I can't do it.
Okay, I'm so jealous.
Don't worry. We got to have a conversation anyway. I've been meaning to hit you up about some stuff, but It's been crazy because it's like Crytek hit us up. I got invited to Lawbreakers. I got invited to like a whole bunch of IndieCade showcase. I got invited to. There's just like so many things attending, or we're going to try to cover and stuff like that. Doing an interview with Aaron Greenberg at E3, so that's going to be crazy. Hopefully, I can shoot that live. Well, and I'm really hoping that Microsoft. And then I want people to understand something. I don't think people are going to be wowed by Microsoft conference because I don't think they're going to show a lot of new things or bombs, one of those type of things, because they're really just going to show all the games that's coming out this fall that is going to be released. They want to spend a lot of time on those games so that way those games can sell. Even having they want to be able to show off these games and play them for long periods of time to explain to you why these games are the way they are and built the way they are and how they work. So that's very important for them. But I do think Microsoft will show here and there for spring of 2018. I don't think they'll go beyond spring of 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if Sea of Thieves gets pushed to 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if they put a big title exclusively for the fall that's new that we never heard of to replace Sea of Thieves. So that would be big as well. And then finally, announce Fable. Fable, that would be a big thing for the Xbox space because a lot of fans want Fable to return. But as far as games go, I really have no idea what they're gonna do. By this time last year, I already knew Microsoft's E3.
It's crazy because this year, I don't think Microsoft's ever been this tight to the chest with their.
They've been super tight.
Yeah, they have. They have been. It's like,
what they're gonna show.
I think
Like,
things were
seriously, we
dripping
haven't
out.
heard a peep.
I believe Fastback. I believe Microsoft did say they will be at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show this year.
Yes, they will be at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show this year. And to me, that's even bigger because I'm like, what the hell are they going to show at Tokyo Game Show?
Ooh.
Like, what
Miss
are they
Walker
gonna
done
show
made
there?
something for them.
Well, he did take a trip over to Japan.
Let them go out there and announce another Lost Odyssey. See, you will see a video so damn fast that they announce that at Tokyo Game Show. It's not even funny.
Oh wow!
It would be huge if they were able to secure something like that. I don't know if they are. I think the team is already working on a Nintendo product. But yeah, I mean, it would be huge. But I'm not sure. But it would be great. But that's what I'm talking about when it comes to third party owned but built by third party studios. They own Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. We haven't had a sequel to either one of those games since 2008 or 2000. Like we had last time we played them, besides backwards compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show you how dependent they are on Miss Walker and make another Lost Odyssey that Xbox fans want. That they focus on first party and that I'm here State of Decay is going to be amazing.
Shoot.
Yeah, people like I got jumped on because I said one of my my older Addict show spotlights. I said, don't be surprised when State of Decay 2 comes out there and really throws a wrench in like Days Gone or something like that and is on the same level. And people were like, oh no, it can never be. I was like, look, State of Decay was an arcade $20 game that has a AAA budget behind it now.
Yeah, State of Decay is crazy. 3 times the size of the first game.
And the first game was huge.
Yeah, the first game was huge. They have 3 counties now. So every time you go to a different map, it's a completely different environment, a different world, pretty much.
And I touched on that different quests for your co-op teams. You can be able to do multiple quests.
I'll definitely be having a State of Decay spotlight before E3.
Yeah, that's gonna be
it's supposed to be huge. Major improvement graphically. That's all they've been talking about. I actually have to set something up with them. I've been meaning to do that a while. I had contacted them and was talking to them on Twitter, and they wanted to do something, but I just been too busy. But they definitely are going to have some major surprises. I think Crackdown could wow the crowd. Crackdown can truly wow the crowd.
I think Crackdown is the most important title that they have right now that has to go off without a niche.
What Crackdown has to be. This is what Crackdown has to be in order to be successful. And if it's not this, it will not be successful. Crackdown has to be Grand Theft Auto meets Infamous. It has to be that game. The game. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you got the father. And by the way, a lot of people don't realize who Dave Jones is, who was the creator of Crackdown. But Crackdown was made by the father of Grand Theft Auto. The first Grand Theft Auto. So if this world and you have 4-player co-op, you guys have to work as a team. But you can build your character how you want. You can have the ability to run super fast, jump super high, have super strength. You can hop in a car and the car transforms to your skill set. This is what made Crackdown amazing when it first came out. If they can capture the hero feel while also not making it feel repetitive, to give you a lot of quests like in Grand Theft Auto, and each one is different and leads to a grand story. Then when you hop online and play multiplayer, you're in this like battlefield destructible world and everything blows up and you can take out a building and a bridge and kill 4 people at the same time. You see dudes jumping out the building, flying across the map because they got super jump ability. Think about that.
Oh,
It's like I was.
Okay, so you giving me chills now.
It's like I was talking to one of my friends on Xbox Live, and I was like, imagine the world that you're sitting there on top of a building like a skyscraper, and then it just starts falling over, and your friend that joined there, like, you were trolling him earlier, and he done shot the entire building off axle and it's falling over.
But and that's what I'm saying. You could pick up debris and launch it across the map. You can blow up bridges as people are driving across it. So it's just one of those things
GTA
where
5 on steroids.
They have to be able to capture that. If they're able to capture that, they have a hit. This could be a rebooted franchise that really is the next big player for them.
I said Crackdown 3 has potential to rejuvenate the entire genre.
Well, it definitely has the potential to rejuvenate its franchise. So, hopefully they're able to capture that. Forza is going to be Forza. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be a bunch of cars. People who love Sims will pick it up. And then, of course, know what's going to happen with Sea of Thieves. Games like Cuphead and
Below
Ashen and Below and like Below. I don't even want to talk about Below. Please. I spoke to the dude. I've spoken to guys for Below twice. One time in 2015, one time in 2016. I asked a guy in 2016, when's Below going to come out? He told me 26 at the end of the holiday of 2016. But he's not really sure. I'm just like, bro, that game ain't never coming out.
Oh, wow.
That game's never coming out. It's going to take forever, but it's an amazing game.
And let's not get Ori 2. Ori 2, Moon Studios. Ori 2 was received very well.
Ori is definitely going to have a sequel, and that game's going to be amazing. The last Codename.
The definitive edition is free for those that purchase the original game. Just letting you guys know. So go get it.
Yeah, that caught me off guard when I went online. I had no achievements. I was like, where's all my achievements at? Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's a definitive edition.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but it's definitely cool. But Microsoft don't need at E3 more accessories. They need to show any more controllers.
We have another. But wait a minute. But what if they introduce an Elite controller though to go with the Scorpio, an updated Elite?
On stage, do that. I don't know, man. I just feel like they shouldn't. They really need to focus on their games and their IPs and stuff like that. I think it's really important that they do that to recapture the faith of the base.
No VR, either VR or AR.
Who show VR AR? I hope it's the game that Casey Hudson, the writer for Mass Effect, is working on.
Okay.
He had joined the HoloLens team a while back. And they were supposedly working on a game. What he's doing, but if you have a writer of that talent, first of all, if you have a writer of that talent, I don't even know why they would HoloLens. This is the thing that irritates me with some of the moves Microsoft makes. He would automatically be making a game for me. He'd be making the next Fable for me, if that was the case. Even as a writer, he'd be writing the next Fable story. So I would definitely. If he's working on something and it's AR, VR, I would hope that it's something very impressive and something sci-fi-ish.
Cool. Well, I'm excited. You got me all excited now.
Yeah, it's definitely it's interesting. We'll see what's gonna happen. But I'm about to close this up. I do have one more question, and Cal kind of went over it. Do you think we'll see a Fable at E3?
I think we will. I think that will be a big surprise for a lot of fans. I think they will. I think Phil understands that the the Fable franchise is important to a lot of Xbox fans. People have asked for it. People were disappointed with the loss. You don't. The one game that they don't have exclusively is a big Western RPG title. It was kind of like part Western, part Japanese. You lost your RPG. Fable was your RPG. You lost your RPG. They haven't had a major exclusive RPG game that could really fill the void for them. So if they announce something new or they announce Fable, I wouldn't be surprised if Fable 4 pops up or a new Fable.
I will bring up that this fun fact is every Fable is backwards compatible, but Fable 1.
Yeah,
What, man?
and true. You would think Fable Anniversary would be back compatible now.
That's the only Fable that's not backwards compatible.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be one of those go up there, announce a Fable reboot or a Fable 4 and saying right now you can go download Fable Anniversary for free on Xbox backwards compatible.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be cool. That would be cool. I don't know who they would get to work on Fable. It would have had to happen immediately after the release of the Fable studio and all the people. If they show Fable, it's one of those games that's not come out in 2019.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We're in there ready. So I doubt they show it, but if they did show it, then maybe it'd be ready in 2018. Holiday 2018. At the longest. I truly think Phil's learned his lesson from the mistakes of Scalebound and Fable, then the closing of Lionhead Studio, the loss of what's the name of that small studio that made Max Curse of Brotherhood?
Oh gosh, yes. Oh wow. Okay.
Something Play.
Press Play. It was Press Play. Yeah.
They shut down Press Play, which was actually a really good studio, making some really cool platformers for them with Kalimba and Max Curse of Brotherhood. It's unfortunate they let those studios go. So they have room. People forget Twisted Pixel was out of contract. There's a lot of things that happened that a lot of people think Microsoft just lost studios, but they didn't. Twisted Pixel was out of contract. Remedy was never a studio in the first place. It was always third party, just working with Microsoft, and now they've moved on, similar to what the guys over at Insomniac did with PlayStation and coming to Xbox. Yeah, so but right now they're hurting first party wise. You could probably count how many studios they have on one hand. I'm curious about this studio Gobo, which I heard has a lot of ex-Fable developers. They could be working on a Fable. Who knows? I don't think they are, but we'll see. And Rare may have some surprises themselves, not just CFDs, but maybe something else. Rare is a big studio.
We could be coming on that point where Sea of Thieves development cycle is starting to lay back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, this has definitely been a nice spotlight. Thank you guys for coming on. Mamacita, where can these people catch you at?
Well, you can catch me every other Wednesday. I co-host with the Double XP podcast, and that's on Fame Entertainment, his YouTube channel. And I plan to do some video blogs on my channel in the next few weeks on the build up to E3. So, but if I don't have them out, and I definitely will be streaming and live streaming from E3 on my channel, and that's at Classic Gamer Girls at 2015. And you can catch me on Twitter, Classic Gamer Girls as well.
All right. Well, where can they catch you at, Cal?
Man, you already know where y'all can catch me at, bro. Tick Network podcast, Super Pod Shot. Your boy Kal-El, the last on the planet Xbox. Praying to God that this Xbox Scorpio was $499, so I don't have to be the last on the PlayStation and play Alien Isolation, because I don't play horror games. This is going to be dreadful for me. And don't forget, man, you got TICGN.com. If you were supporting us on the website, I do apologize for some of the issues we had recently. I worked really hard to get the site back to normal, so everything is working again. You can go ahead and support us over there to get your gaming news and content. And then, of course, Tick Network. You got Tick Network on YouTube, Tick Network is on iTunes and Google. Take Podcast is on iTunes and Google, as well as most podcast apps, and you can catch our network and all our shows pretty much anywhere, any time of the day. And we'll continue to try to deliver great positive content for all platforms, because that's what we do. We try to be that light in the gaming community.
And in case you didn't catch anything that they said, all that shit's in the description. So I do appreciate you guys coming on. We're about to close this out. Until next time, see you.